Hello, this is TubeMix or Will Evil Do, and welcome. Now, I'm sure many of you will have heard the sad news about the recent passing of the great Quincy Jones, aged 91, one of the most legendary and versatile music producers ever. A man who has worked with Frank Sinatra and Michael Jackson. So that tells you how varied his career was. Um, I was listening to a few Quincy Jones tracks, of course, and in case you don't know the name Quincy Jones, um, because well, if you're not a nerd like me, or maybe you are, but I'll just give you some tracks that I'm sure you will know. So, Soul Bossa Nova, you might not know the title, but it's best known nowadays for being the in the Austin Powers films. And it's a great piece of music, and I think I remember either Chris Evans or Simon Mayo using it on, or I think maybe both used it on when they did Drive Time on BBC Radio 2 as well as background music as a bed. And and Quincy Jones, was also behind the iconic Thriller album, which contained, well, obviously the title track, The Girl Is Mine with Sir Paul McCartney, and they would later, of course, not Quincy Jones, but Macca and Michael would collaborate on Say from his album Pipes of Peace. So, clearly that set the foundations for that. And now I'm a big fan of Victoria Wood, and you may think, well, why would I be talking about Victoria Wood in a Quincy Jones tribute? Well, like Victoria Wood, it seems to be that Quincy liked working with the same people. People he knew, people he trusted, like Patty Austin and James Ingram, who in fact also had a hit, the both of them, not Quincy Jones, I don't think, with Baby Come to Me. It's a brilliant duet. And they also, of course, recorded Alan, start again, Alan and Marilyn Bergman's How Do You Keep the Music Playing, which was later recorded by Frank Sinatra, which is pretty amazing, isn't it, really? You'd think that a pop song by, or soul song, by James Ingram and Patty Austin will then go on to be recorded by the likes of Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett. And Quincy, obviously spans the genres: soul, disco, jazz, funk, pop, even rock, because, Beat It, I didn't know was produced by Quincy Jones, and because it's sort of very different from uh, the work that Quincy is known for, really, being in the soul and jazz category, I suppose. Now, if I have a track to to you, recommend to you to particularly listen to remember Quincy, I would recommend the title track from Frank Sinatra's what proved to be his last solo album, because he did do some duets albums. I don't think Quincy worked on that project. It was a bit weird, really. Sinatra was still alive, but the artists weren't actually with him in the studio. They overdubbed their parts later. Anyway, so the track I would recommend to you to listen to is "L.A. Is My Lady," and it's the title track from, as I said, the 1984 album by Frank Sinatra. Now, it sort of really sums up, the versatility of Quincy, because it's mainly a soul and disco sort of Latin flavored track, but in at the end it goes into big band jazz swing and has a big finish. So yeah, I would really recommend that to you, and I think it should have been a bigger hit. Well, in fact, I don't think it was a hit, or it might have been a hit in the US, but not here in the UK. And yeah, surprisingly, you would think that well, you, well, you would not think Frank Sinatra would suit disco, even though he did sort of flirt with the genre, perhaps through Gritted Teeth, where in 1977 he cut two disco versions of songs that he'd already recorded, and those were Cole Porter's Night and Day, and All or Nothing at All. So he'd sort of flirted with the genre, but LA Is My Lady is, pure soul pretty much until the end. It's an interesting track. It also features George Benson on guitar as part of the musicians as well. So I recommend to you that you listen to it because it's a really good track, and it actually suits Sinatra really well. Then, like I said, it should have been a hit over here. Maybe if George Benson had sung it himself, maybe it would have been a hit, because it's the kind of thing that he'd already been doing. Because, well, he started as a jazz artist, and then obviously became more commercial by dipping his toe into the disco soul world. And so maybe if George Benson had recorded it in another universe, it would have been a hit, but we'll never know. So if I was to recommend to you sort of top 5 Quincy Jones tracks, so one would be Soul Bossa Nova, 2 would be his version of Chaz Jankel's I No Corrida. Chaz Jankel, coming from Ian Dury and the Blockheads, would you believe it, had originally recorded I No Corrida, but it wasn't a hit. And then Quincy Jones, with background vocals from Patty Austin, yes, her again, and Charles May, aka June, had a big hit with their recording from Quincy's album The Dude. So yes, I'd recommend to you Soul Bossa Nova and I No Corrida. Then I would recommend to you sorry, for some reason I just can't seem to say that word. How Do You Keep the Music Playing would be probably the next one. And that's a great one. It's a beautiful sort of love song. It's an R&B soul ballad. And, like I said, it went on to be covered by people like Tony Bennett and Frank Sinatra and Andy Williams. So it seemed to really resonate with a lot of the crooners, which you wouldn't think so. Not many hits at that time would, but clearly it did. So let's see. Soul Bossa Nova, How Do You Keep Music Playing, I No Corrida. Right, 2 more. Well, if you like I No Corrida, you'll like Razzmatazz, again featuring Patty Austin on vocals. And for the 5th one, let's go LA Is My Lady, because I think that's such a brilliant track, and I've listened to it so many times, and it's just great. Right, well, hope you've enjoyed that, and rest in peace, Quincy. I mean, what an extraordinary legacy he has. Yeah, or Q as he was known. So, yeah, rest in peace, Q, and thank you for all the phenomenal music that you've given us, and you'll live on through your music. So, if you want to, feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the TubeMix YouTube channel. At the time of recording this video, you might be able to hear that I'm starting to come down with a cold, so it remains to be seen whether I'll see you without having kicked a ball. I imagine the show will go ahead because, you know, it's the last one before the international break, so it's a pretty important one. And of course, you know, there's the Chelsea-Arsenal game, which at this time of recording is still going on. So, yeah, I know Jordan, JLI Wheels, has said he's definitely back for this one. I imagine Sam will be back for it. And maybe Ben Carney as well. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, yeah, I'll maybe see you then. And if not, yeah, well, see you next time.